Hello there, chat. It's Monday, April 29th, and you're joining us for Wisecrack's Case of the Mondays. Long time no see. The doctor will be with us in just a moment.
Well, it's April 29th. We're back with not a Wisecrack Live. I almost said Wisecrack Live with a case of the Mondays. It's me, Michael Burns, joined as always by producer Henry. We've been on a little bit of a stream sabbatical, a bad batical. But we're back. You know, some would say we're better than ever, but I don't think that's true. So we're not going to lie to you. We're excited to be back, everyone. Last week, I was off, out of town, things of that nature. Henry was waiting out some corporate tomfoolery, but we're here now and excited to see everyone. So thanks for being here. Thanks for hanging out. We'll kind of just kick it for a few as we wait for our friends to show up. Whoever those friends are. For those of you who are here now, I asked a question on Twitter last night, and I'm curious if you guys have thoughts about this. I'm thinking about making a video, like ASAP, that would be about campus and student protest. We did a video on protest earlier this year that performed very poorly. My thought is maybe that at that time we were talking about things that weren't as relevant or immediate, but with everything happening on college campuses over the past week, I was thinking of a video, pretty straightforward, looking at both the history of campus protest movements and the way in which, especially like in the 60s, that the college campus represented a place of like political identity and subjectivity formation, and a place that became associated with, I guess, progressive or leftist thought. And the ripple effects of that, how that can help us understand what's going on now and why what's happening now is so weird, so bad in some ways, so good in other ways. Shouts to any of our college student friends who are holding it down on their various campuses. But I'm curious if people would like want to watch that video because, I argued that we should make a protest video, earlier in the year, and it did poorly. So if I make that argument again and no one watches it, I think they're going to send me back to what's it called, Saskatchewan. I think that's a place in Canada. Eddie says, "What is the thesis?" Well, I mean, I can't like totally give the thesis, the thesis, the thesis away. I guess the gist would maybe be like, yeah, I can't say the exact thesis. I need to do a little bit of thinking about it. But part of my thinking would be that college campuses can often be an interesting place because you have a bunch of people that are not yet kind of caught in the machinations and restrictions of like work and career and family life, who also have more access to information and more time for information, who are in probably the most diverse communities they might ever live in, depending on the college, and that this creates a space for, I guess, like political subjectivity formation that we don't get in the rest of the world. And it's one of the last times we exist in a space that, at least in its ideal form, is not largely controlled and dictated by the flow of capital or by market forces, and that this creates a space for a type of more idealistic and ideologically committed political action. And that if we look at the history of this has gone way beyond a thesis now. Sorry, Eddie. But if we look at the history of some of this stuff, you think about like May 68 in Paris, and you saw a sort of solidarity between students and workers and activists. And you kind of see the same thing where there's a sort of unity between students and the interests of the working class in a way that often dissipates once those students are not students anymore. So yeah, I think some of that is what's going on, but I also think that there is, on the flip side of it, there's this fear, and there was a really good article about this. I'm forgetting what journal it was in, but if we do the video, we'll talk about it, about the way in which the idea of the campus is a weird construction as well. I mean, it's funny too, because like there've been a bunch of tweets and comments about this recently, so this isn't an original thought, but it is this thing where it's like, so which one is it? Are college students scared woke little cucks who can't take jokes and are little babies who can't wipe their own asses, or are they violent political revolutionaries that need to be repressed at all cost? Like which one is it? Because it seems like we're bouncing back and forth but between both of those. So there you go. uh
Oh, good question
Dominic.
from Michael Tower in the chat.
Oh,
Was Marcuse a
wasn't
major
Herbert
influence
Marcuse?
with student academic activism?
God, i I think so, but I'm not totally sure. I'm not as like up on the Germans, but I do know that Marcuse, right, was, and someone correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure, or it could just be like Destiny and look up the Wikipedia and read about it live. But I'm pretty sure that Marcuse was a part of the Institute of Social Research in Frankfurt, however one says that. Um, which was, people like Adorno and Horkheimer were also a part of that institute. Um, it was a wildly influential academic research center that was based on a campus, but also facilitated a lot of activism and things of that nature. One Time Again has a great video on Marcuse. Awesome. There you
Yeah,
go.
I believe that was
Uh,
on doc at one point, but it is a very long one, so it might be one we just talk about on Discord.
yeah. Hellraiser Fleshlight, amazing username. Did I miss Raw Dome? You did not. We're not going to get it today. I'm not saying that to be negative, but I'm just saying we haven't streamed in a couple weeks. It's Monday. We're keeping it kind of mellow. So I don't think it's going to happen, but so maybe we'll work on that video. We are taking this week off of video uploads, so there will not be a new video this Friday. If anyone hasn't checked it out yet, I last week went over and hung out with Evan Yee over at the Break Room, one of the channels run by New Rock Stars, and myself, Evan, and Helen Flourish. Helen, who is sometimes host of Wisecrack, had like an hour and a half discussion about the movie Civil War. So if you want to see that, check it out. I can post the link in the chat in a bit, but there's also there's a link on the community page uh, right here. So there you go. Did you see Civil War, Henry?
I have not seen it yet. I'm behind on theatrical releases. I spent last week binging Shogun.
Oh, amazing. I'm so mad that I haven't watched it yet. I'm also aggressively behind on movies. There's there's movies that I'm not going to say out loud that I haven't seen, that if you guys knew that I hadn't seen these movies, you would think I was a piece of shit. What's up, Maeve? Um, oh, so Fun GPT says it's members only now. So our original stream, we dual streamed it. There is a version of it that is members only. If you're a member on the YouTube page, if you have the green username, you'll see it. If you are not a member, just go to the community tab on our page, and there is a post. That post will take you to the break rooms version of that. So it is still there for everyone I promise. Amine says, I missed Helen. Is she still with Wisecrack? Yeah. So Helen, she does freelance stuff for us. She's not full time. I do know a fun thing about Helen. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I think how lost am I?
Wow, extremely lost. I wasn't timing that. That wasn't a bit chat. That just was a natural interruption of the stream.
What the crap? But we're back now?
Yeah, we're back now.
Okay. Um, the Helen news, guys. Breaking Helen Flourish news on the Helen beat. Helen's doing some writing and research for some more news now. A channel we like a lot.
Awesome.
So there you go. Whenever the first video she worked on comes out, we'll definitely let you all know. Someone said just joining now. How late I am? You're never late. You're always on time. Let's start with talking about Jerry Seinfeld. Um, Now I have been a little iffy on Seinfeld for many years because he seems just like a boring old crank. Now I love the show Seinfeld. It's a very funny show.
Yeah.
I've never loved the man Jerry Seinfeld. Like the comedians in cars getting coffee
I
shows kind
was
of annoying.
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead, Henry.
I was just about to bring up the comedians in Cars with Coffee show. Just like, yeah, I don't like him when he's presenting himself as Jerry Seinfeld, the celebrity or the figure that you're supposed to like have high esteem for. There's a bit of a pretension there in his persona that, when you're watching the show, it's not there because it's the show.
I'll be not reactionary, but a little bit counterintuitive here and say that there is something nice about Jerry Seinfeld in so much as he doesn't act like he's good. Like there's a lot of celebrities, right, who are like
Yeah.
bad. And I know I'm being reductive and childish with my categorizations here, but are like these bad, selfish, terrible people, but they want you to think that they're good. And Jerry Seinfeld he doesn't care if you think that he's good.
Yeah,
He just kind
and
of is who he is. And I do appreciate that about him.
yeah, he's levered like when he was on Fallon and he told Jimmy Fallon to like look at the camera and tell him like the producers don't deserve the amount of money they get paid for doing nothing. Like that was a great piece of that character working.
Yeah. I mean, there was like an episode of comedians in cars getting coffee with a person who's the opposite of Seinfeld, who's really bad but wanted everyone to think she was really good, Ellen, where in the episode they go to some like fancy store and Seinfeld basically says to her like, don't you hate like he doesn't quite say this, but it's basically like, don't you hate being around poor people? And Ellen kind of like laughs it off, and Jerry's like, no, it's terrible. And I love it because it's like, yes, of course these people think that. They all think this way. Um, well, there you go. Do you guys ever have this thing happen to you, which now I'm realizing might have happened to me? Oh God, where you have a medication you're supposed to take every day, but then you forget if you took it or not. But then if you take it twice, you might get sick. Does that ever happen to anyone? Um, I think I think that happened to me this morning. Gosh darn it. Did I?
We need to get you some sort of whiteboard system.
I have a little pill box, but I was out of town. So the question is, let me know in the chat. The question is, did Daddy take his Wellbutrin this morning?
Do we start a poll? Does Michael need to take his pills?
Yeah. And you can let me know. Sometimes I do the thing where I like count them and I try to remember. But if maybe we can even predict, like, do I seem like someone who's operating with a higher level depression than normal? But so Seinfeld did an interview with the New Yorker in which he said some things about comedy that were really, really deep, insightful, well thought out, carefully argued, and things like that. And of course, he was giving this interview to celebrate his directorial debut, Unfrosted, a Netflix movie about the race to make the Pop Tart, which is a real thing. Thank God the woke left did not stop him from making that. Do you know anything about Unfrosted?
No, this is the first I've heard about this. I didn't realize that's why he was on the interview circuit. I figured it was just Seinfeld talking on a podcast, but I didn't know he was bumping something in particular.
I want to see if I can find the Wikipedia description of the movie so we can. Okay, let's find the Is there any plot information? So, Unfrosted is an upcoming American comedy film directed by Jerry Seinfeld from a screenplay he co-wrote with his writing team of a bunch of dudes. It stars an ensemble cast. It's set to be released on May 3rd. The premise is Kellogg's and Post Cereal compete to see if they can produce a revolutionary breakfast pastry in 1963 Michigan. That's the that's
Is it
the
trying to be like funny about it or like satirical in some sense? Is it like supposed to be like a dry humor thing or is it just like a straight
I don't
history lesson?
I don't know. Here's the cast. Jerry Seinfeld, Melissa McCarthy, Jim Gaffigan, Hugh Grant, Amy Schumer, Max Greenfield, Peter Dinklage, Christian Slater, Bill Burr, Dan Levy, James Marsden, Jack McBrayer, Thomas Lennon, Bobby Moynihan, Adrian Martinez, Sarah Cooper, Mikey Day, Kyle Mooney, Drew Tarver, Tony Hale, Felix Salas, Maria Baklova, Dean Norris, Kyle Dunnigan, Sebastian Maniscalco, Beck Bennett, Cedric the Entertainer, Fred Armisen, John Slattery, John Hamm, Aparna Nakarla, if I said anything wrong, I'm sorry, Andy Daly, and Sarah Burns. Shout out to my cousin, Sarah. Sarah Burns is not my cousin, but there you go. Um, Additionally, Rachel Harris and Cedric Yarbrough have been cast in undisclosed roles. Okay.
Ooh,
Um,
undisclosed mystery roles.
yeah. So that sounds great. Um, doesn't it doesn't though it doesn't sound very good.
It sounds like he
There's they
really
don't
keeps up with what the current landscape is as far as comedy entertainment goes and knows exactly what it needs.
Yeah. What's up, everyone in chat? Maybe we should. Yeah, I wish we could easily watch movies together. But so he's, doing a media tour to talk about Unfrosted. And he said that PC crap and the extreme left is making television comedy go extinct. Uh, okay. He says that, yeah. He says no viewers no longer flock to their television sets in order to get their comedy fix like they did for decades. I mean, so a few things here. And I think Henry had mentioned this in our chat. So there's a show called Abbott Elementary that's one of the biggest shows on television. That is a comedy show. It's very funny. Millions of people watch it every week. Don't know if Seinfeld has seen that one. I don't know what would lead him to not be interested in that show. But there's other comedy shows, but of course, as many of us know, network comedies have been on the outs for lots of years now. This isn't due to woke or PC culture, because it's not like the shows that are doing well are super PC or whatever. Like the shows that do well are cop shows that old men watch. Shows about cowboys, cops, firemen, special agents, FBI, CIA, CSI. That's what people watch on
They're
TV.
a
They
big
watch that
doctor show
and
right
reality
now.
shows. Oh yeah, a lot of doctor shows. The Good Doctor is a show that's not good, but that's what people watch. One of the reasons people don't make comedies, comedies haven't done as well. There's tons of people trying to make comedies all the time. A lot of the analytics say that comedy is bad. I think comedy is also bad. And a lot of the streaming services bank on international viewership. And I've heard that comedy doesn't play as well because comedy often involves, and especially the way jokes are written nowadays, often rely on, cultural and political specifics that might not play well if you're watching it in Taiwan, where a crime show is like, oh, there's a bad guy and there's a good guy. There you go. I mean, I think if you're watching Law and Order SVU in Beijing, maybe some of Ice-T's particular jokes and one-liners might not hit super hard. But you got that. Seinfeld goes on and says nothing, and you could listen to the whole interview with the New Yorker if that's the thing that you want to do with your limited time on this planet Earth. Oh, also I forgot to tell you guys, since it is here for the case of the Mondays, I got everyone's test results and it's not good. I don't know what you've all been up to for the past couple weeks, but I've never seen Mondays levels like this in all my years of being on a medical television series. So I'm really worried for you all. I'm glad that you're here. This is in fact the only treatment, but really, really bad case of the Mondays going down with all of you. So I'll be honest, most of you aren't going to live to see another Monday. So I hope you enjoy this one. I'd feel really bad if one of you actually died this week. So don't do that. Seinfeld says that nothing really affects comedy. People always need it. They need it so badly and they don't get it. I mean, it's also funny too because there's a bazillion comedy podcasts. I would say this, there's too many comedy podcasts. I think we
Strong
need
agree.
way less. Like, so many podcasts are just like mid-tier sketch comedians doing podcasts about other stuff. I'll tell you a thing I hate. No one asked for this, but I really hate podcast where comedians talk about movies. I hate it very much because often they almost flaunt the fact that they don't know anything about movies and then they just riff about movies. And I hate it. I hate it. Speaking of things I hate, Seinfeld said it used to be you would go home at the end of the day. Most people would go, oh, Cheers is on. Oh, MASH is on. Oh, Mary Tyler Moore is on. Oh, All in the Family is on. Note that every show he's referencing was like from the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, these
And
aren't
I'm
even
not
like
trying to be.
90s and aughts pools.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure of these shows. Cheers, I think, made it into the 90s, then ended, but was primarily an 80s show. MASH 70s. Mary Tyler Moore is like definitely 70s. All in the Family 70s. So, you know, to put that in perspective, these are shows that were on TV 40 years ago. That's the point of reference that Seinfeld's using. It's funny that he doesn't even reference his own show that ran up through the late 90s. Um, he says, well, guess where? So he says, you expected there'll be some funny stuff we can watch on TV tonight. Well, guess what? Where is it? This is the result of the extreme left and PC crap and people worrying so much about offending other people. Do you think Seinfeld knows that there is a show called It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
I I I wish he did. I want to believe he does, but like it's amazing he doesn't.
Yeah, like it's one of I think it's now officially I think the longest running like half hour comedy ever. I think it eclipsed Seinfeld.
Yeah, and like how long was
Um
Curb Your Enthusiasm running?
a long time. Well, this is it. Okay, let's bookmark the Curb thing because I think we should end the Seinfeld discussion with that because there's some obvious irony at play here. But you know, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia is a very un-PC. I don't want to stoop to his level. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia is an edgy, fun show that pushes boundaries and explores big ideas in a funny way. So it's fun. It's just and it's still on TV. I'm curious too. Drop in the chat. What are comedy shows that you still watch nowadays? But there's good stuff. I Think You Should Leave is very popular.
Yeah.
Whenever a season of that drops, everyone talks about it and memes the hell out of it. There's been other great comedy shows like I loved This Fool. I loved Detroiters. I loved a show I know Henry loves as well, South Side. I mean, they all
Smiling
get canceled.
Friends is like the funniest cartoon right now.
Yeah. But like these shows don't get canceled because of wokeness. They get canceled because of studio execs and marketing teams. I don't know if anyone saw this news over the weekend, but Paramount Plus was going to produce a David Cross and Bob Odenkirk show, and it got canceled because of marketing analytics. Marketing analytics aren't woke, friends. They're not woke at all. It's financial data sets. And financial data sets are notoriously unwoke. Now, Seinfeld said that comedy fans are now going to see stand up comics because we are not policed by anyone. Notorious, anarchist comedians, the audience polices us. We know when we're off track. We know instantly and we adjust instantly. But when you write a script and it goes into 4 or 5 different hands, committees, groups, here's our thoughts about this joke. Well, that's the end of your comedy. But he is right that it is bad that creative people in Hollywood, and we talked about this a couple weeks ago on Wisecrack Live with the Harper's article by Daniel Bessner, but it is bad when creative people's work is modified by executives. But these people don't really care about I'll tell you this: they're not the far left. No one from the far left works at NBC, Universal, Comcast conglomerates and is going over scripts. No one is doing that. There's not like a college woke guide. But let's see. He goes on to say, we did an episode of Seinfeld in the 90s where Kramer decides to start a business of having homeless people pull rickshaws because, as he says, they're outside anyways. Do you think I could get that episode on air today? He goes, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I think you could totally get that episode on air today. If you did it well. Again, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Like, one of their recurring characters on that show is a former friend who becomes a priest who they push towards addiction for fun, who they later hunt as a sort of joke. I forget what Rickety Cricket is up to now. Who they then I think turn into like a sex worker, and which they mock. But all that to say is like a show like It's Always Sunny does lots of insane stuff, but they get away with it because A, it is funny, and B, they are the main characters are bad. We're not supposed to say when we watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, it is good that they are doing this. We are laughing at the utter depravity of a group of characters whose souls are nihilistic in the wrong way. The same way in which a show we haven't talked about as much recently on the channel, but the reason that historically we've liked Rick and Morty. Insane stuff happens on that show that is not morally good, but the show doesn't tell us it's morally good, even though some of you on the internet seem to think that the show is telling you those things are morally good, and that's maybe one of the reasons why people want to stop talking about it. But yeah, so I don't know. I think it's just very, very silly. And then he goes on to talk about like film. And at the very bottom of this, it says, what has replaced film? Depression, malaise, I would say confusion, disorientation replaced the movie business. I just don't. And then he goes on to say, everyone I know in show business every day is going, what's going on? How do you do this? What are we supposed to do now? So this is just another example of someone confusing like business and politics and economics with that anomalous thing we call culture.
Yeah.
Like we talked about, there's the Bessner Harper's article that breaks down in pretty stunning detail the economics of the film and television business and why things are happening the way that they're happening. And rather than taking the time to understand a business he's worked in for 40, 50 years, he's blaming the problems for the entertainment industry, which overlaps with streaming, which overlaps with economics, which overlaps with AI, data, all sorts of stuff. He's blaming it on like college kids. Because again, are college kids like, what are they? Are they radical entertainment terrorists? Are they cucks that learn things that are useless? Are they spoiled little brats? I don't know. College students. Oh yeah, Righteous Gemstones. I'm sorry, I didn't look at the chat for a bit. I mean, yeah, Danny McBride. Like, watch anything that Danny McBride has
Yeah,
ever made.
Eastbound and Down, Vice Principals, like they've been
Yeah,
going for decades, Jerry.
seriously. Like and here's the thing, he's not canceled. I don't know, like
Kramer,
it
what's
started as a
going on in there? It's called modern TV, Jerry. Maybe you should check it out.
yeah, I mean, like also it started off as a comedy, got a little uncomedic, but I don't know. Barry's pretty insane. That's a pretty insane show that
Yeah,
existed. The Curse is a pretty insane show that exists and has some wild stuff happening. Anything Nathan Fielder has touched,
I
there's
f-
people doing interesting stuff.
yeah, I feel like even 3 years ago, I might like feel a bit more like what Jerry's feeling because I feel like post Louis, there was a weird kind of blending with like comedy and drama that was very popular. But
Yeah.
like, I feel like traditional sitcom stuff's kind of coming back to form, at least if you're like searching it out on streaming services.
Yeah. Like there's stuff, guys. That's the main thing. There's stuff
Isn't
that's
Abbott
getting
Elementary
made.
like straight up a broadcast show? Like it's pretty PG rated and it's like really great at doing stuff within that context.
Yeah. Um, Eddie can hear college kids outside his office store. He hopes they can hear this. They're about to take over Eddie's office and hold him hostage, I think. Because Eddie likes us to think he, is a, you know, creative person and an art teacher, but what if he's an administrator at his college? What if he's donning the identity of an open-minded young man just to gather intel? Um, let's see. Honeyman says philosophy is one of the only professions where everyone assumes they're born experts. That and comedy we're learning. But so I'll just like wrap on this. I do think, oh yeah, please like the stream. Thank you for saying that. I don't think we've asked you once to like the stream yet, guys. So please like the stream. It helps us a lot. Uh, but the funniest part of all of this is for those of you who don't watch Curb Your Enthusiasm, which thus far I think has been the most talked about comedy show of the year. It's been on air for 20 years. It just wrapped up, tons of press around it. Jerry Seinfeld was in the finale of that show. He played a major part in the finale of that show. That is a show like PC, edgy, woke, whatever. The entire final episode, season of Curb Your Enthusiasm revolves around Larry David giving a bottle of water to a black woman in a voting line in Atlanta and getting arrested for it and becoming like a fake civil rights advocate or something. But also, it just there's so much that happens in any given season of Curb Your Enthusiasm. Like, just watch the parts with Leon in them that are not PC, that are not woke, but they work because they're funny and they're smart and they're thoughtful. And you don't get the idea that Larry David is just some old guy that's like, I mean, he is like some old cranky guy, but he's not saying stuff like that, you know? So all that to say is like we're really excited about the release of Unfrosted on Netflix this weekend. Please join us. Go to netflix.com/wisecrack/unfrosted for the special Wisecrack Unfrosted experience where Jerry Seinfeld comes to your house, shoves a bunch of Pop Tarts in all of your holes, and screams at you until you cry and you get unwoked. So if you want to get unwoked, again, go to netflix.com/unfrosted/wisecrack and enter the Jerry Seinfeld assaults you with Pop Tarts and toaster strudels until you're not woke anymore challenge. Please like the stream if you want that to happen to you. How was your flash night? Thank you for your number. Ooh, boy, Chris Maverick here says that Jerry doesn't understand linear time. I,
Why
I
aren't we
really like
watching
that.
MASH?
Seriously, guys, seriously. Someone brought up Archer as well. Thanks as always to our patrons. You know, if you want to join, you can. We're gonna get some new stuff up there soon. I'm behind on making stuff because I was out of town. Shouts to everyone who got a copy of my wife's book. And it came out last week. I know I told you guys about it a couple weeks ago. It's called Two Minds, out with Norton Publishing. She's been on a book tour. She did some events in New York, Chicago. If you're in Los Angeles, tomorrow night at Skylight Books, my wife has a book event there. So if you're in LA, you know, you can go to Skylight Books on Vermont. Great local bookshop with a good philosophy and theory section. Check that out. John Kim, how you doing? Manifesting 666. We love it. So a couple other things while we're here. Just a reminder, no new video coming out Friday. Maybe because we want to make up for some lost time stream wise.
Yeah. Uh-oh. Michael, are you there? You've been frozen
Am
in
I
time
gone
again.
again?
Yeah.
Am I gone again?
You had mentioned doing
Oh no.
some sort of maybe extra stream, but then things
Yes.
got fuzzy.
Yes. I brought up, friends, since we don't have a video coming out Friday, maybe we'll do something that day together. So the other thing I thought we could talk about a little bit is a Rick Perlstein writer has an article, My Dinner with Andreessen, about Marc Andreessen. Now, some of you might remember that Andreessen wrote the what was it called? Like the Tech Futurist Manifesto
Yeah, the
or something?
Techno-Optimists Manifesto, just like technology will fix everything. Yes.
Yeah, it was like the Optimist Manifesto, but it's more or less like optimistic about techno fascism, which totally rules. Um, let's see. So yeah, let's look at this. Okay, so I'll start at the top of this. This is an article on prospect.org. You know, always go check out websites if you want to. It says recently I read about venture capitalist Marc Andreessen putting his 12,000 square foot, which honestly, for someone who's a billionaire, maybe I don't understand square footage. That doesn't sound that big. I mean, it's like really big, but I would think that a billionaire would have a bigger thing. Uh, so he put that up for sale. This was done to spend more time at his 177 million home in Paradise Cove, or the $34 million one he bought beside it. or the 44.5 million one he bought in Escondido Beach. Upon reading this, I realized it was time to stop procrastinating and tell you all a story I've been meaning to set down for a long time. About the time that I visited that house, the cheap one at 33 million. So he says it was 2017, and a YIMBY activist. What does the Y stand for in YIMBY? Is it just your
Yes.
or yes? So yes in my backyard, which this is one of the things I'm dumb about, right? A YIMBY is someone who is in favor of building more affordable housing in their community. Yeah. Cool. Shout out to all my namies. Eric Wilson's first live stream. Glad to have you here. Really appreciate you being here. So there you go. Ryan, thank you for watching the break room and the Civil War discussion. Really appreciate it. And check it out because the break room. One of the people that works on that is our friend Evan Yee, that used to be producer at Wisecrack. For the real OG Wisecrack heads, you'll remember that Evan and I hosted our Patreon streams. That was really exciting. Also, too, with patrons, we're almost to 1,000 patrons. Once we get to 1,000, guys, shit's gonna get crazy. So, if you're thinking about signing up, sign up because we're gonna start doing some fun new stuff when we get to 1,000. So let's read about this dinner. So it's 2017. A YIMBY activist invited me to talk about my book Nixon Land with his book club, which also happened to be Marc Andreessen's book club. See, billionaires, they're just like us. They have book clubs. Speaking of book clubs, too, that's one of the things we're going to start doing on Patreon pretty soon. I'm excited about it. I took some notes on an airplane for what I want to do for the Wisecrack book club. So get ready. It's going to be freaking crazy. It's not going to be crazy. Just like talk about books. But it says they offered a free flight and a hotel. I accepted. We met in that house. I was vaguely aware of Andreessen as the guy who invented the first web browser. I'm just going to skip ahead. Well, actually, no, I'll read the whole thing. He says, a socially useful accomplishment by any measure, and a story I'd long kept in the back of my mind as an outstanding proof text that useful invention often flourishes best when government subsidizes it socialism style, given that Andreessen had created it while a student at a public institution, the University of Illinois. I boned up on what he was up to now, courtesy of a gargantuan profile from the New Yorker. Shouts to the New Yorker, shouts to Jerry Seinfeld. We agree. Andreessen, I learned, was tomorrow's advanced man. He superintended the newest and most unusual venture capital firm on Menlo Park's Sand Hill Road. He seethes with beliefs and is afire to reorder life as we know it. That's scary. That some super rich dude wants to reorder your life. His enthusiasm included replacing money, cryptocurrency, replacing cooked food with a scheme called Soylent, and boosting the now invisible Oculus virtual reality headset. That was one of the things too. If you've ever wondered why we shouldn't trust some of the billionaire tech class, these are the people that were like, food, that thing that for thousands of years humans have used to interact with their environment and communities, which they have used to sit down with together to share time and conversation, a thing that involves careful preparation and then the aesthetic pleasures of enjoying a well-cooked meal, and even the opportunity for cultural knowledge that comes through experiencing meals from cultures and traditions that aren't your own, from meeting the people who prepare those foods, all of that. What if we drank a green thing out of a bottle instead? What if we just gave all that up?
Can we just make this a powder?
Like, it's just insane. And feels like a direct affront to everything that, Anthony Bourdain stood for. So it says 0 for 3 when it comes to picking useful inventions to reorder life as we know it. Oh boy. His net worth is 1.7 billion. Okay. The author later learned that he was a stockholder in Facebook and a member of the civilian board that helped oversee the CIA. It was later in a tweet of his I saw the phrase woke mind virus. Years later, a manifesto he published, which we read together. If for any reason you want to see that, it's a stream we did. And if you want to find that stream, it's the worst thumbnail ever. Why is it the worst thumbnail ever, you asked? It's because I made that one. Our buddy, I think it was when our friend Olivia was off getting married. And I was like, I'll make a thumbnail. How hard can that be? Harder than you think, kids. Um, but so he published his manifesto, and the writer goes on to say it includes lines like, "Technology is the glory of human ambition and achievement, the spearhead of progress, and the realization of our potential. The residents of Nagasaki and Hiroshima might once have wished to disagree. For hundreds of years, we properly glorified this until recently. We believe everything good is downstream of growth. Growth, baby, growth. Not though. Growth, maybe not so good. And there is no material problem, whether created by nature or technology, that cannot be solved with more technology." I remember that was a line that just really stood out to me when we read that manifesto. This idea, I mean, it's kind of like, I don't know, this is a bad metaphor to use right now, but the spirit of a lot of that talk always reminds me of like fucking one's way to virginity, you know? It's like we can just fuck ourselves deeper to get back to some state of purity. What's up to everyone in the chat? FunGPT has growth in their pants. Wow. Pause. Um, okay, let's see. Hey, what's up, Blondie? Just, check in with the chat. Love the chat. Love you guys. Glad to see you all here. Thanks for hanging out. Please do like the stream if you haven't. You know, also, I saw a comment on an old video today where someone said something to the effect of like, "Stop acting like you guys are poor when you have 3 million subscribers." How many times do I have to explain to people that subscriber counts mean literally nothing on this platform? Also, another thing, I just like to give you guys random updates on stuff we're working on. Have a meeting tomorrow to really try to get things moving for us having some more podcasty things and having Wisecrack's content available on podcast platforms. I realized when hanging out with some people who are older millennials in the last week who all asked me like, "Oh, Michael, I hear you have a podcast," and it's like, well, it's not a podcast. And then people being like, "Oh, I want to listen to your show. Where is it on the iTunes store? Where is it on Spotify?" And realizing that a lot of older people don't watch YouTube, so we're trying to help that out. Also, Wisecrack got a shout out in the Chicago Tribune the other day, so that's fun. Um, yeah, well, it's because the Chicago Tribune wrote a feature on my wife's new book, and there was a line that was like, "And her husband, Michael O'Neill Burns, works for an intriguing media company called Wisecrack." Ooh, do I intrigue you, sir? Um, so he goes back. So to get back to this, says the big idea: our enemy is the precautionary principle. Normal people define that as the imperative seeking to prevent and contain certain potentially civilization ending potentialities. Andreessen conversely calls precaution perhaps the most catastrophic mistake in Western society in my lifetime. Deeply immoral, and we must jettison it with extreme prejudice. Man, this guy had to hate the last third of Oppenheimer. Just hated it. And he says we ought to embrace in its stead, naturally, what we ought to embrace is markets. Yes. Yes. Wherever you are right now, guys, just scream the word markets. Don't. Unless you work at a bank. If you currently work at a bank or at a financial firm and you're watching this, just scream the word markets. And I imagine some of your coworkers will be like, "Hell yeah, brother." Um, he says, oh, where was I at? Yeah, so markets divert people who otherwise would raise armies and start religions into peacefully productive pursuits. You know what? The campus protest movement needs more markets. That's my take. Um, he says what stands in the way of the recognition of this, or he says what stands in the way of the recognition of this so-called self-evident truth. That self-evident truth, once again, being markets. Ideas like sustainability, stakeholder capitalism, social responsibility, tech ethics, trust and safety, and risk management, boo, which must be eliminated with extreme prejudice, according to the logic of the piece. So there we go. Basically, the manifesto is an argument dressed up in the raiment of morality about power. Andreessen and people like him should get to make decisions to reorder life as we know it without interference from everyone else. I mean, this is interesting too, because we discussed in the video from a few weeks ago on free speech, and then we talked about this on stream a bit. This idea that some philosophers, people like Plato, are kind of against democracy and have this idea that there should be guardians or philosopher kings in society that more or less rule. And the reason some people don't like that idea, which I totally get, and I'm not endorsing it here either, is that doesn't that just lead to people like Marc Andreessen being in charge of everything? But of course, the whole point for someone like Plato is the guardians of society should be people who spend their entire life doing nothing but seeking philosophical wisdom, and seeking wisdom in a way that's disconnected from power, that's disconnected from political markets, that's disconnected from wealth and affluence. So I think that, like, you know, should we be skeptical of anyone who thinks that they should be the one in charge? Absolutely. Should we be even more skeptical of someone like this who owns like a bazillion houses and is clearly just seeking their own power? Yes, yes. 1,000 times yes. But I think what we're kind of seeing now, as we continue to see perversions of everything good in society. Sorry, it's Monday. I was a little negative. We'll be really happy Wednesday on stream. But it's another example of taking it. It's we turn culture into content, right? We turn science into marketable technologies, and in this case, it's like turning the idea of philosophical wisdom and the notion that there's people in society who are seeking that into these guys, these people who we think are smart because they invented one interesting tech thing years ago, cashed out on that, and then just kept telling us how smart they were. Shout out to everyone who got their Cybertruck recalled. So get back to the article. It says it was a nice Northern California day. Um, I saw from the map that a ride share would be cheaper if I embarked from a freeway entrance a mile or so from where I was. I set off on one of those walks. He strolled across one of the shabby parts of San Francisco. Stops included a junk shop filled with ghosts of San Francisco past, yada yada. He arrived at his destination in a good mood, electric with a writer's observant curiosity. The first detail I noted in Atherton was the gate where I was dropped off. It informed me that an armed guard was on duty 24 hours a day. The second was the hulking object standing in the front door, sculpture by the French modernist master Jean Dubuffet, a smaller version of a massive, beloved downtown public monument Chicagoans call Snoopy in a blender. That made an impression. He rang the bell. An Asian man in khakis and a sweater answered. I snapped into guest mode, introducing myself enthusiastically. He responded with an odd coldness. Then I realized he was not a fellow guest, but the butler. 100 years ago, he might have been referred to as a houseboy. He met Andreessen's wife, Laura Arrillaga Andreessen. She's the daughter of a sharp fellow who began scooping up commercial real estate in the bedraggled lands around Stanford. Land ownership rips, guys. If you can buy some land. She showed me around her art collection. I tried not to gawk and failed. That's an Agnes Martin, Klaus Oldenburg. He's one of my favorites. I later learned that she made a project of classing up the cultural desert of Silicon Valley. But progress was sluggish, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to skip ahead to there were also lots of books on many subjects piled up in skyscraper-like stacks. Andreessen, you see, is an intellectual. That's why I was here. I don't believe that these people actually read. I don't know if that's conspiratorial of me. I guess it kind of is. But I don't believe that people like that actually read. So, what's up to everyone in the chat? Guillermo says, if you couldn't ignore the opinions of billionaires, why is Twitter still called Twitter? If you call it extra, a cop. Boom, boom. It's a song I'm working on. Yeah, sorry, just catching up on the chat. I like the chat so much. Sometimes it's harder when I'm reading, but thanks for being here. Like the stream. Ask questions unless they're really offensive. If they are, then Henry will boot you because he's a cop. Okay, so Andreessen wasn't there yet. So he waited at the dining room table. A chef in starched whites served me something delicious. Then arrived in the room a cranium so large, bald, and oblong that you can't help but think of words like jumbo and grade A. And one by one, his guests. My first impression of them came of their response to my small top description of my delightful afternoon. Jaws practically dropped, like I had dared an unaccompanied, unarmed stroll through Baghdad, Solder City in the spring of 2004. Yeah, tech people are really afraid of the city of San Francisco. I'd been told via email a little about the people I would meet, mostly fellow investment magnates, but also an extra person added the last minute. She was a woman researching life. Oh my God. Did I leave again? Am I
Minor
back again?
stutter. We had she was a woman researching life and a cutoff.
Okay, we'll keep going. It says, I can be slow, but I got it. Um, so there was an Uber CEO there. The chef served them a meal. Um, okay, so let's jump to, let's see. I see from a follow-up email that among the things discussed were David Haggett Fisher's Albion Seed, Four British Folkways in America, on the geographic patterns of American political culture and their persistence. The anti-Enlightenment philosopher Julius Evola, I had just begun exploring the explicit anti-liberalism of those close to Trump, 1970s New Left historiography on regulatory capture, Corey Robbins is good, The Reactionary Mind, Jimmy Carter's Embrace of Austerity, the magnificent volume Strange Rebels, 1979 and the Birth of the 21st Century, and Jonathan Haidt on Personality Type and Ideology. Someone else must have brought him up because I can't stand him, he said. One participant was a British former journalist, become computer tycoon, who had been awarded a lordship. He proclaimed that the Chinese middle class doesn't care about democracy or civil liberties. I was treated as a sentimental knave for questioning his blanket confidence. Another attendee seemed to see politics as a collection of engineering problems. That is the thing these people do. They don't like the notion that humans exist. Um, let's see. I want to go to the subject of Senator Elizabeth Warren came up. They rose up in thunderous hatred at her for blocking potential innovation in the banking sector.
Once again,
Was what had collapsed.
gotta cut
Oh my
out for a
God.
moment.
Let's see. See, guys, like the audio is better today because, you know, in recent Monday streams, I've done the headphone thing, but now this is happening. Um, well, let's see. Hmm. Let's see. Okay, so I want to skip ahead. So there's the section that starts. I knew from the New Yorker that Andreessen grew up in an impoverished farm. Blah 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 blah. You know, he brings up the ordinary stuff. He's really a man of the people. And I want to start it. And that's when the man in the castle with the seven fireplaces said it. I'm glad there's OxyContin in video games to keep those people quiet. Now, in the leading up, again, he was talking about the rural Midwest, regular working class and poor Americans. And Marc Andreessen, the billionaire in the castle, said, I'm glad there's OxyContin in video games to keep those people quiet. Shouts to OxyContin in video games, I guess. Oh boy. Again, thanks for being here for this one. We'll get through a little bit more of this, but you can check out the article on your own. I'm taking the liberty of putting it in quotation marks, though I can't be sure those were her exact words. Mark, if you're reading, feel free to get in touch and refresh my memory. Maybe he said quiescent or docile or maybe powerless. He was joking, sort of, but he was serious, definitely. Kidding on the square. Jokes like those are called. All that talk about human potential and morality. And this man of fire to reorder life as we know it jokingly welcomes chemical enslavement of those he grew up with for the sin of not being as clever and ambitious as he. There's something very, very wrong with us that our society affords so much power to people like this. There you go.
Damn.
That's the end of that. It lands really hard. But yeah, so Rick Perlstein
Wonderful writer.
hangs out with Mark. Great writer. Hangs out with Andreessen, sees these people who are meant to be the pinnacle of our society, who are using their big ideas to reorder things for us on our behalf, and you know gets at the idea that these people treat the idea of cities like they're scary. You know, the slums of Baghdad from the era of the Iraq War, who treat the help like pizza delivery men, and who make glib jokes about how it's good the people in the rural Midwest are addicted to opiates and video games. So that's pretty fun. That's pretty fun. Oh, someone in the chat says something really good. Guillermo Gonzalez says we need to stop mistaking lack of impulse control for ambition. Yeah, I think
Yes.
sometimes when we talk about ambition with these types of people, it really does feel like a type of performative sociopathy in which people don't have the ability to imagine, I guess, where people don't have the ability to imagine that the subjectivity and consciousness of those who are not themselves exist, and who can't fathom the idea that their thinking and that their desires might be able to change, alter, grow, evolve, develop via open interactions with the ideas and consciousness of others. Yeah, Sapphic Hazard said this is basically what Knives Out was about. Yeah, I thought the second night Knives Out was maybe better than some people give it credit for in terms of that aim.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, people like this suck. And the worst part about it is, well, not the worst part. A part of this that I actively dislike
You faded out again on actively
is on
dislike.
me. Andreessen is on to me. Come to my house, Mark. Say it to my face, you bitch.
Yeah,
But
before we get
am I back?
canceled. Yeah, you're back.
Yeah. Um, but chives out. That's funny. Uh, but yeah, I mean, the troubling thing, of course, is these people who are self-styled philosopher intellectuals who I think, host things like book clubs to launder their own ignorance, because then they can convince themselves that they're smart people if they have gatherings at their mansions where ideas are discussed. But we all know that what these ideas are snippets of podcast or articles or tweet threads that they then use to justify what they already think. And I think that's a crucial difference as well. I don't think people like this read books to learn. I don't think they explore ideas to change their minds. I think they seek out ideas that serve as proof text to their own innate impulses.
Yeah,
Um,
it sounds like Perlstein was invited to this book club because of Nixonland, which is his newest book. But like, I did find it
yeah.
interesting when going off of Andreessen's bookshelf that like Perlstein has a great book called Before the Storm and also Nixonland. Like he's written about the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Like he's written about old stuff as well as like more current stuff. And on the shelf, on Andreessen's shelf, he has subjects from the same era, but he doesn't have any of Perlstein's actual like old writing there. So it's very
Mm,
clearly like I don't think this man actually reads the things inside books.
no. Um, it seems like he very much does not. But yeah, what these people remind me of are like the alpha bros who use bad readings of science to justify being misogynist date rapist, Um,
Yes.
people who find these like ideas to be, well, in the animal kingdom, it's not immoral when the wolf hunts down the sheep. And it's just like, first of all, you don't understand how nature works. But second of all, no. Um, and of course, too, like I'm sure all of us, yeah, someone says, I wish I could like comments because someone goes, yeah, you guys are great. Um, this is one of those ones where I'm excited to go back and read all the comments in the chat because every time I look down, it's awesome. My setup's just a little weird today, so it's harder for me to see. Um, but to say something, I guess, kind of humble, I do think it's important for all of us then to not be less, not that anyone asks for my advice, but to be less aggressive Andreessens. Because we all have like axioms, we all have ideological commitments. Hopefully they're good, and hopefully we are using certain like, the test of equality to make sure we're in a good place with all that. But we can all do this. And especially with stuff happening in the world right now, it's kind of easy sometimes to cherry pick all the examples that make our position uncomplicatedly correct. So,
Check out what
let's.
Philosophize This just asked.
Ooh, my God! Philosophize this in the chat. What an honor! What an honor! Good to see you in the chat. You've been crushing it recently. I'll say this because I know you're here now as well. Would be great to do something sometime. I know we talked about it. We're both busy people, so I get it. Um, but even if you just want to come on stream and chat, maybe we do a podcast. I don't know. Let's talk again. Let's reinitiate that conversation. Do you think billionaires are the extremely influential will benefit from hiring ethicists, or do you think they would just use them to better find justifications for their behavior? Amazing question. Also, I'm sure most of you do, guys. If you don't subscribe to Philosophize This, what are you doing? What are you doing if you don't? One of the best things on the podcast scene and on the YouTube scene. So please check that out. Yeah, I mean, that's super interesting because you could imagine, right? I could imagine that there might be billionaires who would have that impulse in a good way. I'm almost thinking I might get his name wrong. Is it Gary Stevenson, the guy who has the channel Gary's Economics, who put out a book recently? I forget, but it's the guy who does Gary's Economics, and he's someone who was like a market trader in London, made like millions of dollars in his 20s, realized that the industry he was working in was pretty gross, went back to school and got a graduate degree in economics, and now kind of does public facing economics education about how incredibly aggressive and antagonistic towards the poor and working class our dominant economic systems are. And he's someone who like is a millionaire and like started some group in Britain that's like millionaires who aren't bad. It's not called that, it's something like that. But you see examples of people in that world who seem like they do want to be good. However, um hell yeah, philosophize this. But I think the other side of philosophize this question is like, I think what we do often see in like the Silicon Valley side of things are people that like want to use ethicist to provide justification. I mean, I think you see this sometimes. I mean, this is one of my problems with effective altruism. I've talked about that here before, but I think that one of the big problems with effective altruism is it's an ethical framework that gives me a moral justification for potentially pursuing work and goals in my life that are largely beneficial to me above all else, with this moral justification but it gives me more money to give away. And I've always been very uncomfortable with that idea. I've talked about it before, made videos about it. So I think that's maybe what my take would be there. I'm wondering, Henry, what do you think about that? If you have
I
thoughts.
find it hard to. I don't think there would be anyone that listens. That seems a bit cynical, I guess, but I just think after a point it comes down to more like power and pressure and application, and that there's like bigger, more violent fish that want to like force things down.
Yeah. Someone in the chat asked about Megan Flockin, a philosophy radio show in Orlando. I've never heard that. That sounds cool though. So yeah, I mean, I also think there was a thing too where unlearning economics. Okay, cool. Sorry, just catching up with the chat. Um, yeah, I mean, because it seems like there was a period where there used to be there was a window as well for people that were in grad school for philosophy where people were like, oh, well, we'll all be able to get jobs as like ethicist and medical ethicist and all this sort of stuff, and it just feels like that never panned out because the ethicists weren't doing a good job. And often, if you look at companies that start I mean, maybe we should look into this. That would be a fun thing to research. Corporate ethicist and what
Like
they do.
companies that have ethicists on board. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Philosophize this. Is that what we should do? Should we do some episode together where we look at corporate ethics? That could be kind of fun. Um, yeah. Someone's a pimp named Nasty Nesto. Wow. Said unfortunately, ethicists might go the same way as DEI programs or
Right.
many programs in the past. Yeah, for sure. Because as we all know, like the problem with DEI isn't that diversity, equity, and inclusion are bad. It's that gets used as a way to launder in other stuff. Um, but there you go. Yeah, someone said corporate and ethics is an oxymoron, and that's the thing too. Like, what are you using? Like, if I'm interviewing for a corporate ethicist, I guess I'm just trying to find some like weird utilitarian who's going to let me do whatever I want because it makes the market better. Because with most other prominent like ethical positions, it's going to be hard to hire someone that's going to let me, do ruthless corporate takeovers. So yeah. Okay, well we'll wrap up here for today. And guys, remember, Case of the Mondays, we're just checking in. We're just getting you ready for the week. Our main event, of course, is Wisecrack Live. So tune in Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific. We got a lot to talk about. There's a lot of stuff,
So
guys, that
much
we did not
happened
get
last
into
week.
today. There's a lot happening, including if we're even just going to keep it philosophical, we got to talk about philosophy professors getting arrested on campuses for being like, hello, don't hit the students with sticks, please. Um, And Cloud, I'm going to say her name. It's Noelle. I forget her last name, but yeah, the chair of philosophy at Emory. Yeah, yeah. Noelle McAfee, the chair of philosophy at Emory University, a place where I've had colleagues who have done their graduate work there, um, arrested for being like, whoa, economists being arrested. It's been a crazy time. There's a lot to talk about, and there's a lot of it that ties directly into some of what we're talking about now: philosophy, ethics, power, all this sort of stuff. So we have stuff to get into. Let me know again in the chat if you endorse me writing and filming a video this week on the student protest movements. I kind of want to do it a little more casual, like how we did that Mr. Beast video recently, where I kind of like just talk to you a little bit. So hopefully we can make that happen. But I don't want to do stuff that you guys don't want. And then I have an idea for a Friday stream, Henry. Um, I'll tell you
I'm all
in the
ears.
chat. Yeah, hell yeah, Eric Wilson. Um, my idea right now, and then in the chat, if you're still here too, like things, um, like the stream. What if I set up one of those Google Voice numbers, and we let people call in with questions and comments, and we do an old school radio call in hour?
Yes. Yes. Yes, that's if
Because
we can get enough phone calls within a week. Let's do that on Friday.
Yeah, because we used to do that when we did our podcast. We still, I don't know if I still have access to the number, so I'll probably have to set a new one up. But so guys, check. I'll put it on our community page. I'll put it in Discord. So if you're a patron and you're in Discord, I'll put it on Twitter. So, questions, comments, bits, all types of things. So maybe we'll do an old school radio call-in show on Friday. That could be pretty fun. Um, awesome. Well, thank you for hanging out. Thank you to all of the members for showing up. Thanks to Philosophize This for popping in and asking a really good question. The commentary was high, like a high level for people that are on their deathbeds with a case of the Mondays. Amazing. It's like your bodies are being decimated by the Mondays, but your minds are strong.
Yeah, I was glad to
So
come back to our patients and see them in such good condition.
yeah, so for those of you who make it through two more sleeps, we'll see you on Wednesday. Set reminders and note that if you want to make sure you don't miss any of the streams, you can set the little like bell reminder. Go to our page, go to your settings, and YouTube makes you do this. They won't do this automatically, but go ask YouTube to tell you whenever we're live, okay? Because some of you sometimes will say, "I didn't even fucking know. I didn't know this was happening." They make it annoying to do it. But do that if you haven't done it yet, okay? And if you don't know how to do it, you just Google it or something. It'll tell you. Eddie, that makes me happy to hear that. One account. We'll see you then. And friends, we will see you on Wednesday. And we can't wait to see you then. Henry's been great. So I guess we'll wrap it up here. See you in a couple days.
See you Wednesday,
Good
y'all.
luck with your Mondays.
Good luck.